Imaging Center.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Good evening once again, and welcome to Doctor on Call. It is a pleasure to be back. Of course, the past 2 weeks we had our health forum, Antillian Life Health Forum, where we looked at a number of areas as it relates to a new focus on health. We did promise that following the forum, we will have the doctors back on our Doctor on Call program to go into some more details and some of the subject matters that we discussed. And of course, you, our listeners and viewers, can get to ask questions. We know we are not able to accommodate as much questions as we would have liked to in the forum, but they will be back, and of course, you'd have that opportunity. Well, starting right after the forum tonight with me, Dr. Francis Martin, and during the forum, he looked at the area of disease diagnosis and treatment. And this evening, we will continue, and there are a couple very important areas that we will be looking at on the program. But first, we welcome our viewers to GBN TV 7 and 11, viewers on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and of course our listeners on K105 FM. We welcome Dr. Francis Martin. Doc, good evening and welcome back.
Good evening, Godfrey. Thanks for having me back, and I take this opportunity to commend you on the initiative that I think was a very useful one, and I really looking forward to the weeks of discussion that would emanate from the points raised during the forum. Really wonderful program, and I think it augurs well for healthcare for us all.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Doc. But let me say, it was a collective effort, and without the support of people like yourself and others, it couldn't have happened. So thank you too, and I also congratulate you. Yes, indeed. Yes, but there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of information to put out there as it relates to our health, because it's important. And going on to saying a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. If that is true, then we need to pay a lot more attention to our health. So, Doc, this evening, I want us to go back, and there was a question that was posed during the forum, and we didn't have a lot of time to look into it, and it has to do with as a developing nation, and we're talking here Grenada, how can we better diagnose, manage, and treat existing conditions to decrease our mortality rate?
Yeah, well, that is an interesting and very deep-seated question, if you want to put it that way. Historically, developing countries have always had to find interesting ways to manage their whole health landscape. Some countries have found really different ways of doing so. I recall countries like Kenya and Zimbabwe, to a certain extent, when they had a real problem with the healthcare providers in a certain particular area of healthcare, they found an interesting way to scale up training for the healthcare providers and access to health service users. And so developing countries have always had to find ways to do this. Now, I would not want to speak broadly, because I think we need to speak more specific and local in terms of how do we develop our health system to decrease mortality and morbidity, or sickness and death, as you call it. I think we have to take a look at our Grenadian culture. The things that rings well with the Grenadian people, the things that we value most. We must take a look at that. We also need to know what's happening in our societies. We need to be aware of what diseases are happening, who is getting what type of disease. And so community profiles are an excellent thing that must be done. In every community, we must be aware of who is getting sick and why they're getting sick. I recall some years ago, the maternal and child health department discovered that there was a village in a certain parish in St. George, not St. George's, I'm sorry, a parish on the island that had the highest teenage pregnancy rate. And when they found that, we went into the community to find why that was. And so we were able to address that matter. So this is where the value of community profiles are important. Each parish, each district must know who is dying from what. So our epidemiological department of our Ministry of Health, and by the way, they have that data. The epidemiological department of our Ministry of Health has the data on who is dying from what. And that's why I was able to put together a graph that looks at who is dying from what. So we need to know that. Then developing countries now need to figure out what are the health providers, who are the health providers we need on island to help us go through this. Because not every country needs every type of healthcare provider. So for example, Grenada does not need a cardiothoracic surgeon. We can't afford it. We don't have enough people here for cardiothoracic surgery. But of course, we may need a nephrologist. And the only how we will know what we need again is by knowing who is dying from what. We know that prostate cancer is the number one cause of death for men in this country. So for that reason, we're aware that a urologist, someone that is specialized in, the reproductive organs of men, the genitourinary system of men, we need that. So we as a country need to figure out how do we build our resources in urology, because that is killing a lot of our people. We know that diabetes and hypertension is huge. So again, we need to figure out how we're going to get endocrinologists on the island to help us to deal with that. And by the way, let me say that when we have figured out how we're going to get our endocrinologists, please don't put the endocrinologist in the hospital sitting there waiting for diabetics to come to him. Because that's what we do. We train nephrologists. And when they come into the island as a nephrologist, they sit in the hospital so that people with kidney failure comes to them. To my mind, that makes absolutely no sense. These people need to be out there, what we call stopping the upstream determinants of health. They need to be out there training and teaching people how to protect their kidneys and how to protect themselves from getting prostate cancers. That's what developing countries have to do. We have to focus on the upstream determinants of health, the things that create the environment for disease and ill health to take place. So after we have done our epidemiological profile, we know who is dying from what. Then we now figure out what services we need to offer to prevent these people from dying. We've got that under control. Now, the third is to develop a delivery system so that we can get the care to the people where they are and to take care of them upstream. Well, fortunately for us, we do not have to reinvent the wheel. The delivery system for healthcare that has proven over the decades to be beneficial to developing countries like Grenada is primary healthcare. There is absolutely no more data to demonstrate this or to prove this to us. We're aware that the primary healthcare system is the best and most affordable way to provide healthcare in developing countries like Grenada. Grenada was very fortunate in the sense that during the revolution, the then government of Grenada saw the benefit of primary healthcare, because I think at that time, Grenada was extremely close to the Cuban system. Even now, we're still very close to the Cuban system. And we benefited from some of the pillars of what the primary healthcare system in Cuba was like. And so we now have already known the data that that's how it has to happen. How we make it happen? What mechanism we're going to use to make it happen? What process we're going to take to make it happen? What road we're going to take to make it happen? That's where the rubber hits the road and the proof is in the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The nuts and bolts, you're going to work that out. But from a policy standpoint, it is very known that the primary healthcare system is the best way to deliver healthcare to developing countries. Let me drill down a little bit more. The primary healthcare system that has been known to help developing countries is a ground-up, community-based healthcare. And it must be done by using the community to help you to deliver that healthcare. That has always been proven to be the case. And so it continues to be one that we must do. Within the current construct of what we have on the island, it is very difficult to deliver primary healthcare here in Grenada as is where we are right now. It just won't work. One example is there are just too many healthcare facilities around the country to staff every one of them and have every one of them provide care for everybody in the district. We have to find a way to streamline that so that we can provide care in reliable places where everyone in the community knows that healthcare will be provided at that particular place every day of the week. And that builds confidence, right? It builds confidence. And so that's something we need to do. Simultaneously with that, we must find a way to build up, scale up, resource our health promotion department or disease prevention education department. They must go hand in hand. And our healthcare providers must be in tune with health promotion activities. How do we prevent people from getting ill? And that has to be, to my mind, the fundamentals as to how we can prevent death and sickness in developing countries like Grenada. I stop here now because I think that is a mouthful for the opening.
Yes, but I do have some questions coming from that. Of course, you mentioned primary health care. The most affordable way, then the whole issue of the ground-up approach, community-based healthcare. And very importantly, you spoke about the number of health facilities and, we're not being able to staff them. Dr. Martin, that's a very, very interesting comment because a couple of weeks ago, someone called me and they said they visited the medical station because that individual, they was having an asthma attack. So it wasn't a full-blown attack, but they started having some signs and they were feeling very uncomfortable. And so went to the medical station to get some attention because the doctor was going to be there on that day. Only to be told by someone at the facility that today we are only dealing with chronic conditions, so you cannot see the doctor. It was very worrying when I heard that, and it goes back to the point. How is it that someone who may possibly have an asthma attack, all right, be told that, look, you cannot see the doctor because today we are not dealing with that. We are only dealing with a particular thing. And to me, that hits to what you're talking about. Too many facilities, understaffed, so people cannot get treatment every day of the week if something happens.
Well, let me preempt this answer by saying, over the 20 years that I have had to practice medicine on the island, every time I hear a report like that, every time I was faced with a situation like that I had to investigate, I found out that the information was false every single time. Because you see, when people tell you something, they're speaking to you in a way to exonerate themselves, and to make the other person look bad. Because I cannot see it in my wildest dream that someone will be in an asthma attack and they'll get a statement like that. Godfrey, I am pretty sure that is not what transpired. Let me tell you what I think may have transpired. What may have transpired is that person is probably known to be asthmatic. And so they don't know the sign and so on. But not everything that wheezes is asthma. And not all asthma wheezes. And I'm telling you, many, many times asthmatic comes to me saying they have an asthma attack and they're not having any asthma attack. I've seen it already. So it is quite possible that the healthcare provider may have assessed that person and have determined that that person is not in a full-blown asthma attack. And that's how a healthcare person will tell a healthcare seeker that kind of statement. Because I can't see anybody turning back and ask Martin.
Dr. Martin, I'm sorry to disappoint you. It actually happened. Because if I give you all the details, you would cringe. But that being said, let's move on. But I want to go back a bit on the whole issue of the primary health care being the most affordable way. I want you to break that down a little bit, because I think we need to clearly understand what is meant by primary health care and what is the ground up approach in making it effective.
Right. Primary health care being the most affordable way means that you prevent the environment for disease to occur in the first place. Mm-hmm. In the second place, you screen people regularly and early to identify early risks for diseases. And those two things means that you are not going to have a high risk of having to pay lots of money for disease treatment. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. It means prevention. It means stopping disease early in their tracks. And if for chance a disease has to come, then you get it early enough to prevent complications. So for example, screening for prostate cancer. If you find a prostate cancer very early, by simply doing the treatment very early, you can stop the cancer from growing up, from getting big. Because I can tell you, it would cost any Grenadian an average of about $80,000 EC to treat prostate cancer, and that's just one upfront treatment. And there are a number of thousands of dollars thereafter. However, doing a prostate test is $80-something. Doing a rectal examination is just going to cost you the doctor's fee. Now that's primary healthcare. How do we stop you from spending $80-something thousand? By simply investing $80-something into getting your prostate test. Mm-hmm. Primary prevention, right? Now there is this thing called primordial prevention that people don't really speak much about, but primordial prevention means that someone like the governments of the country, for example, create an environment that prevent cancers from happening. So for example, an example of primordial prevention is, it is widely known now that nitrites that are present in canned foods, for example, salami and sausages, mm-hmm. under the influence of hydrochloric acid in the stomach, these nitrites turn to nitrous amines, and nitrous amines is a well-known cancer-causing substance. So I'm giving that an example. If the government decides to say we're not going to import sardines, or we're not going to import sausages, in other words, they're preventing the environment for cancer to grow. And that's an example of what our primary healthcare really is. The ground-up approach to healthcare delivery means that you allow the community to determine how they want the healthcare to be given to them and delivered to them and paid for healthcare services. So in other words, you form really strong collaborations between community leaders and your healthcare providers. And your community leaders and healthcare providers would meet regularly so that the community leaders can help the healthcare providers to understand the healthcare risks within your country and help you to deal with it. At one point in time, and even up to now, we still use a lot of foreign doctors. I remember the days when I was an intern. In the hospital when I was an intern, I was one of the 2 or 3 only Grenadian doctors in the hospital. Everybody else was Nigerian and other places. Mm-hmm. In our communities, we had doctors who were trained in other places. We used Cuba as an example. There is no way that a Cuban district medical doctor can understand fully what's happening on a community level to be able to provide the care for that person. Primary healthcare says, have a community approach. In other words, you must have your community help you to deal with diseases in your areas. And in the past, again, Grenada had done it. Mm-hmm. We had something called the District Wellness Council. Well, I actually call it the District Wellness Council, but I don't know what the government in Grenada called it at that time. But that's a group of community leaders who knows your community very well. They may include teachers, they may include retired public officers, they may include farmers, they could include construction workers, anybody who is interested in providing healthcare. And they themselves help you to determine what are the risks in the community, so be able to deal with and decrease disease and health. And basically, in a nutshell, that's what it means.
Right. Dr. Martin, you mentioned earlier as well, doing community profiles. And I like that, because even me moving around, there's certain things you identify in different areas. And I think it is very important, especially you making that point. An initiative like this, doing community profiles, who should be responsible? Who should be the partners in ensuring that these things are done so that the primary healthcare system can be effective?
Well, that's a very complex question, and we can find ways of handling it. There was a time when we embarked on a primary healthcare revitalization program here, and I had the opportunity and the pleasure of being part of that revitalization program. And one of the things that was tried to develop a profile like this was to have what you call district health services managers. And these district health services managers' responsibility would be for the administration of healthcare within the district. As one of the deliverables under the job description of such a person was to develop community profiles. And so a few community profiles were successfully developed. At that time, as I've always said, you have to use the best that you have in your country to help you do such a thing. Fortunately for us, we have SGU there. So we were able to partner with SGU, the Department for Public Health, and some of the master's students, they did community profiles as part of their thesis. And so we had a few community profiles. We had community profiles for St. Patrick, we had community profiles for St. John and St. Mark to know who is dying from what. And that served us so well. It actually helped us solve a big problem that we had in a particular community. We had a problem in a particular community where the doctors found it difficult to control the diabetes. They couldn't figure out what was the cause. It was baffling because we all thought we understood what needed to be done. They were counseled every time. The nutritionists were there, but they still weren't. When the community profile was done, it turned out that in that particular small community, most of the persons who had chronic diseases will actually drop off from school in a very early age. And they themselves could not read. So you're giving them stuff. You think they understand.
They don't.
But they have no clue. They shake their heads when you speak to them. But when we did the community profile, we found out that we did not really know what the problem was. In another instance, we found out that the reason why this small group couldn't be controlled is because of poverty. These people were so poor that all they had was, in one particular instance, all the man had was ripe plantain.
Oh boy.
And bananas. So how you expect his sugar to be controlled when all he's eating is bananas and plantains? So this is where community profiles comes in. And of course, it's a much bigger issue than that, but I simplify that way for you to understand where I'm coming from and what community profile actually means.
You know, Dr. Martin, this is something very, very, very important. And I just put something together here that I call EPH. Education, poverty, and health, and I'm able to see that link, and it's really lack of education, which can result in poverty, which can result in ill health, and then eventual death.
It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle because one worsens the other and the other worsens the other. And so in public health, we call this the poverty trap. So it's going to go round and round and round because when you get when you get poorer, lack of education, you get poorer. Ill health. Ill health makes you even poorer.
Of course.
Because ill health, you can't educate yourself, you can't educate your children, so your children gets poorer, and this just the cycle just go on and on and on. It's a terrible trap to be in, but it's a reality of what we see in developing countries.
Dr. Martin, let's take a short break. We're going to come right back. Stay with us, folks. Don't go anywhere.
AIDS, cancer, historian, archivist, author, former Peace Corps volunteer, and lots more. It's the John Angus Martin story on Tristan Grenadians this Wednesday, 6th April at 8 p.m. on GBN TV and social media platforms. Join us.
When you need your prescription filled or you require non-prescribed medication, supplements, or all your personal needs, visit Gittins Healthcare at locations on Wall Street, Grandans, Victoria Street, Brandon, and Central Deputy Street, Wall. Gittins Healthcare aims to provide an exceptional personalized pharmacy experience. Additionally, children under 5 and adults 55 years and over will enjoy 10% discount on purchases of $20 and over on prescription medication. Stop settling for less. Visit Gittins Healthcare, where your health is our priority.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's a service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Level of convenience and comfort awaits you when you shop at Rise and Shine Supermarket and Hardware Supplies, Griffin Lane, Grenville. Convenient, because we are open Sunday to Sunday. We're even at your service on public holidays. Comfort, because we are easily accessible to the physically challenged. Free Wi-Fi is available while you shop, and bags come at no charge. Everyday low prices and excellent customer care. Adequate parking available. We supply everything you can possibly think of. Family and home supplies, fresh meat, vegetables, and personal care products. All brands of cooking gas at affordable prices. You can send in your order, have it pulled, or pick up express.
Angie, don't you know that you should not fly kites near electrical poles and wires? You should only fly it in open areas. If the kite gets stuck, it can cause power outages throughout the village.
Then I'll just pull it down, Johnny. Simple?
No. You shouldn't do that. You can get shocked. You should call Grenlec at 237 and they will come and help.
Alright.
Never fly kites near the power lines. If your kite ever gets tangled, do not attempt to remove it on your own. A message from Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give.
underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now. We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carrico. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grandlands. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500 or visit any of our 3 locations. Spicile Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
Welcome back, everyone, and of course, just to remind you, we will open our telephone lines in a bit, but of course, we still have a little bit more to discuss with Dr. Martin, and then we'll be coming to you for your questions. Dr. Martin, in the prevention of chronic and other conditions, the issue of trade practices, what impact does it have on these conditions, chronic and other conditions?
Trade impact has a huge implication on chronic disease. And if you ask me, probably the single most important impact on chronic disease is trade, and on many, many different levels. Let me tell you, in 2011 and 2011, the Caribbean region recognized that chronic disease was the #1 cause of death because 80% of our people were dying from chronic disease. For this reason, the Caribbean region tagged chronic disease as an epidemic because it was killing people here of epidemic proportions. At that time, the Caribbean region came together for the first time and have chronic disease be placed on the agenda of the United Nations to discuss chronic disease in the Caribbean. It was the first time in the history of the Caribbean that Caribbean countries were able to get an issue on the agenda of the United Nations. At that time, the United Nations accepted it, and every country in the Caribbean had to send a delegation to the United Nations to plead our case that chronic disease is an epidemic. Now, among many of the things that were discussed, there is one very vexing issue that we were taking to the United Nations. And that is, we wanted the United Nations to accept that chronic disease is or was an epidemic in the Caribbean. Because if it's killing 80% of your people, it's got to be an epidemic. You know, the United Nations did not accept this. They didn't accept that chronic disease is an epidemic. Now, there are many people around the world that may have different reasons. They may say the United Nations may have had different reasons for saying that. At the end of the day, the United Nations said that chronic disease is a challenge to the Caribbean. They did not use the word epidemic. Now, Godfrey, I don't know if you know why that is, but that has a very serious implications for chronic disease in the Caribbean.
It is.
Because the United Nations knew that if they say it was an epidemic, there's a cascade of things that must happen and must follow through. From a United Nations standpoint, they need to set up certain organizations, they need to do certain things to help chronic disease in the Caribbean. And importantly, trade relationships, the manufacture of chronic disease drugs, all of these would have been affected to the extent that Caribbean would be able to now produce essential drugs at cheaper rates for our people. And to my mind, that's the single most important reason why it was not labeled an epidemic. They said it was a challenge. And by the way, I can have a whole program on that United Nations issue, because it's like they slapped us in our faces and to tell us what it is we need to do to manage chronic diseases. So yes, trade is a big issue from that standpoint. Fast forward to now, we have all the evidence that shows that chronic disease has found its basis in behavioral changes. Well, yes, it's behavioral changes, all right, but what are the behavioral changes that has put us at risk of chronic disease? Is trade divorced from behavioral practices? I dare say no. As a matter of fact, trade has enabled the behavioral practice. The behavioral practice that causes us to use sweetened beverages. The evidence and the science is clear that sweetened beverages, especially those that are sweetened with high fructose corn syrup, causes addiction. Addiction. We have evidence of that. And so a lot of people consume a lot of this thing because they are addicted to it. Secondly, even if there is no addiction, because of trade laws and rules surrounding marketing and trade, we as a country cannot simply stop the import of a lot of those chronic disease risky foods. And so we are at the mercy of these foods, these fast foods. We are at the mercy of those, and it's difficult to stop them because you cannot tell a vendor who is a custom selling chubby from Trinidad that she can't bring in her chubby. You can't do that, because it's going to create another issue in the Caribbean with trade practices in the Caribbean as well, sugar and other foods and so on. So to my mind, they create the environment and enables the formation of chronic diseases simply because we do not have the teeth to stop those things from entering into the country.
Dr. Martin, let me just come in here a bit. A couple of weeks ago, in the news, the government of Barbados, they increased the tax by an additional 10% on sweetened beverages as a deterrent.
It's called the sweet tax, the sweet tooth tax or something like this. I mean, this has its benefit. Having a special tax on those foods have its benefit. It's similar to taxing alcohol. There is a benefit to taxing alcohol, but two things to my mind with doing those tax. First of all, the tax, does the system have a way to make sure that the tax that is collected goes back into the health system? Or does it go into the consolidated fund? Because if it goes into the consolidated fund, forget that. Because especially for our system here that we have, these taxes are good, but we have to find a way to get them to put programs back into the health system, health promotion program that is, health education program that is. We have to find a way to do that. So that's a good way to go. And we can do this for alcohol as well. But one has to understand that whenever you tax something that is addictive, the sale of that thing don't necessarily drop, you know. What people simply do is they take dollars from where they used to store it before and direct it towards that thing that is addictive. So taxing alcohol, for example, will not deter an alcoholic from buying the alcohol. He's just going to give his wife less money at the end of the week. That is simply what's going to happen. So there is that aspect of it as well, and we should look at it to make sure. Plus, there is other risk of taxing things like that. The risk is that the trade can now go into the black market, where people find clandestine ways of bringing things in and out to avoid the taxes that are being paid on them. And those are something you just need to think about. But overall, the idea of taxing these things is useful and it has been shown to help, but countries must find a way to channel that money back into health promotion rather than lumping it in a big consolidated fund where it gets lost, and so Ministry, you have to fight with Ministry of Finance to get those funds back. It's not something that is desirable for developing countries.
So, Dr. Martin, where does that leave us? Because chronic conditions is a challenge, not an epidemic. And we are placed at a serious disadvantage because, measures or support that we in the Caribbean should get to assist us in dealing with this, it's not coming our way. The taxation, yes, but not the effect. We will not get the effect that we want to. Where does that leave us? What do we do?
It leaves countries to bite the bullet, if you want to put it that way. It leaves countries to bite the bullet. And that's what countries don't want to do. The political will must be there to bite the bullet and do what's necessary. The people of the country must understand this and make the necessary sacrifice as well. Because there are solutions out there, but the solutions are not fancy. The solution might make certain persons miss certain things, but as a policy, as a system, countries in the Caribbean needs to bite the bullet, because if you don't, the investment that pharmaceutical companies are making into chronic disease and cancer, these companies will continue to make that investment because they know for sure that if countries don't bite the bullet and do what they ought to do, their future and their business success in the future is sure. They know that. I mean, look, go into town right now and see how much pharmacies there are in town.
Oh, yes.
That should tell you something.
Of course.
How many pharmacies are in town? I rest my case.
So then what impact would you say that politics has on healthcare? Because it is a serious issue, and we're talking here about biting the bullet. What is the impact of the politics on healthcare?
Policy and politics has all to do with healthcare. As a matter of fact, there is a special area in public health that is called the politics of healthcare. The politics of healthcare policies, because the political directorate of the countries sets the healthcare policies and sets the direction of where you want to go with healthcare. Now, there are easy ways to gain political points by using healthcare, and then there are hard ways to gain political points by using healthcare. The correct and the ease and the best way to demonstrate good politics in healthcare is not necessarily the easiest, but we know it is the best. So, for example, I have seen in countries where the political directorate, they would build health facilities, and they would build health facilities to appease the desire of a district or I've seen this in other countries, in other islands as well. But as it turns out, the people that you expect to use the health facility don't use it because of other issues that they face, either transportation issues or whatever it is. But at the time, it was politically expedient to do so. Because it looks as though you're bringing healthcare to that community. We don't understand the demographics and the logistics and all this kind of things. So this is one way where politics can affect healthcare delivery. Another way is because politics have politics is who gets what, when, and where.
Yes.
So when you look at it that way, who gets what, when, and where, that's the politics right there, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if it's based on sound policy, usually the political directorate don't get support in the beginning. Usually they don't get that support in the beginning, especially when it is based on sound policy. But my opinion has always been, if you make those sound decisions early in your political cycle, there is a great chance by the time the cycle comes to an end, people will now see what you're saying. They buy into it, and they'll eventually vote you back in for it. And so that's an issue that we really need to look at if we really want to make that kind of change.
Right. I have one other question before we open the telephone line. Now, the practice of diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease, all that has to do with medicine in a big way. In terms of priority, where do we place them? Is there any part of that are they equal or any part should be given priority?
As a Grenadian person who born and bred here and never, well, I traveled, but I am entwined in the roots of DNA of Grenada.
All right.
Grenadians believe in treatment.
You're right.
Grenadians believe in treatment. When you really try to get...
No, it's true. It is true.
Have to do.
It is true.
Yeah. They believe in treatment. However, the science is clear that countries, the treatment of chronic disease, the cost of treatment of chronic disease will outrun countries' ability to pay for it. It is widespread. So our citizens need to understand that there will never, ever be a time when our system will be able to pay for the healthcare. Never.
Doc, just as an aside, sorry, and we will be coming back to that, but as an aside, why is that so? I mean, healthcare, you listen to world leaders, and healthcare is such a big thing on their agenda, but yet still we're in a position where we will never really be able to pay for the healthcare that is required to ensure a state of wellness.
That is because healthcare is in the marketplace. Healthcare is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So what countries have to do is to figure out how much we're going to spend into healthcare and what we're going to spend it for. So you figure out how much you're going to spend and decide what you're going to spend it for. And the best idea is to, after you figured out how much you're going to spend in healthcare, spend it for prevention, not treatment. Because if you spend it for treatment, you will always be behind the 8 ball. You'll always be playing catch up because country will never be able to afford to pay for healthcare as you see it. So this whole idea of the basket of care is a very important concept. The basket of care is where a country decides what is the scope, what is the height, depth, and length of healthcare that we afford to give to our people to keep them healthy. How much does that cost? And then you put the funding into that.
Very good, very good. We're going to open our telephone lines now. Well, it's open. The number is 435-2041. So, folks, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Martin, you can definitely do so. You have any contribution you would like to make, of course, the opportunity is now yours. Our telephone line is open, and the number is 435-2041. So you can give us a call, and of course, you can put forward your question to the doctor. The number again, 435-2041. While we wait on the call, let's take our final commercial break. By the time we get back, we should have the calls coming in. Stay with us, folks. Don't go anywhere. The Doctor and Call was brought to you with the kind compliments of Antillean Life Insurance.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Get ready for a season of Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN. Grooving Smooth and Live is a 1-hour performance gig every Thursday from 8 p.m. featuring performances from our local musicians and short interviews discussing all things musical. Every Thursday, a different musician and a different instrument will be featured, from the violin to the saxophone to the trumpet, guitar, and steel pan. Our local musicians playing, improvising, and educating us on all genres of music. Join GBN with host musicians Matthias and Shireen and a special guest every Thursday at 8 p.m. It's Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN.
The ultimate rivalry among secondary schools has returned. It's the Republic Bank Inter-Secondary Schools Championship, Intercall, April 7th at the Karani James Athletic Stadium. 1 day, 46 events. Many will come, many will triumph. Be part of this momentous occasion for glory, for honor, for the rights to be crowned Intercall Champions 2022. Remember the date, April 7th. This one promises to be epic.
Historian, archivist, author, former Peace Corps volunteer, and lots more. It's the John Angus Martin story on Tristan Grenadians this Wednesday, 6th April at 8 p.m. on GBN TV and social media platforms. Join us.
Feel good facts.
Remember, if you have flu symptoms, do the right thing and stay at home to avoid giving it to others. Remember, you can be infectious up to a week after developing symptoms, so rest up and take it easy.
Raise it high up the ladder.
Scholar, me and a man talking there. The man tell me he have a boom box that give him real stress and he know what to do. So I asked the man, I said, why that boom box? The man started to laugh at me and the man go to tell me, but you and Scholar and them on week culture every Friday night and you know it's a boom box. He said, man, give me a chance, I ain't talking to you again, man. So I don't know what the man talking about. You know it's a boom box, boy?
So Godfrey, you don't know what is a boom box? You asking me if I know what is a boom box? Of course I know what is a boom box. Godfrey, you have to stop that. Well, if you don't know what is a boom box, then you don't know what is a Remy. Anyway, you see this Friday on We Culture, I will tell you what is a boom box and what is a Remy.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
Welcome back. Our telephone line is open, and so we go to our telephone line right now. Doctor and Call, good evening.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, good evening, caller. Go ahead, please, with your question.
Yeah, Doctor. I called Dr. Martin. I called a few nights ago when you had your program with your different guests, and was trying to make a point. And I'm glad that I'm in the position to listen and hear what you talk. And it's something similar was going on, but Godfrey cut me off because he didn't make me to finish what I was saying. But what I was trying to understand and explain is that you, I'm glad you mentioned what you're saying about our situation in Grenada and the Caribbean, the region as a whole, we don't do prevention. What I was trying to say is that we were talking. Remember, I mentioned concerning NHS and National Health Service. What I was trying to say is that if we have a National Health Service in Grenada, where everybody pay into, even people in the diaspora who are working, would love to contribute to us because everybody gets seen to when it comes to healthcare. And then you encourage people to take out a policy or insurance policy that later on when they reach young in their later life, they can get something to see them through till they die. So what are we trying to say? Having a national health service where everybody paying to, and we can, I believe we could kind of stem the problem. We need certain amount of health measures in Grenada, where people have facilities where people could have access to. At the moment, our health system in the Caribbean and Grenada is bad. So I am just saying, based on what you said, it makes so much sense that we need to try to prevent than to say you advise people in order to prevent from doing, because we can't stop, like you said, we can't stop, the governments can't stop importing certain things. But if you advise the people, these things are not good for you, it will give you problems later on down the road, that we in Grenada and the region as a whole then could turn around and say, okay, let's not do this, let's do that, and our health system will be much more accessible to everybody where we could afford healthcare. I know healthcare is expensive, but I think based on how we are today, it will be a lot better later on down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Martin?
Yeah, caller, I understand the concept of what you're speaking about, and you are correct. That you probably just need to adjust a word or two that you're using. Because you were talking about the national health system or service.
Service, he said.
Service, yes. So, caller, I think you need to adjust the word service. I think what you really want to say is a national health insurance. Because we already have a national health service. The current public health service that we have on the island is called a national health service. We call it public health, but it's a national health service. But I think the concept of what you're talking about is called a national health insurance, where everyone puts money into a pool, and that money that goes into the pool is used to pay for healthcare services whenever it is required. And I think most countries are trying to do that in some form or the other, and we are no different. We're trying to do this. I want to plug in here, however, caller, that persons must understand, not because I am paying into a healthcare insurance gives me the leeway now to go out and do anything I want to do because I know that there is monies there to pay for my healthcare. This would be a terrible state to be in, because if that happens, that same public purse of money for healthcare will dry up.
Oh, definitely.
Because as I said, it is going to dry up because, as I said, it is difficult, almost impossible for a country to find enough money to pay for all the healthcare available under the sun. So even if you get that national healthcare insurance, we still need to promote prevention, because even insurance companies, as they are right now, even the insurance company that exists right now, will not cover every single thing that you have. So the concept is a good one, but the ideology behind it and the behavior behind it is that citizens need to still understand that you must take personal responsibility and prevent rather than waiting to get treatment.
Yes, indeed. And people, I think, also need to understand, even if there's a health insurance, people need to understand that, well, the scope of the coverage it's in most cases not any and everything you think, well, okay, I need to go and do a heart transplant, so the insurance, it doesn't work that way. So these are things people need to understand as well. You know, sometimes we talk, we hear things, and then without paying attention to the details, then we run into problems. So I think that is very, very important. Okay, folks, the number 435-2041. You can give us a call, and you have any questions, we will be happy to entertain you, and of course try and provide you with the answers that we have. Let's go back to our telephone. Doctor on call, good evening.
Okay, Godfrey.
Yes.
And I don't want to be, I'm not a nuisance. I don't want to be a nuisance, but I'm just trying to see one point. Why does it work in the United Kingdom and it can't work here?
Okay. I think you're a little bit, I don't know. The NHS is called the National Health Services in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I'm part of it.
Yeah, the National Health is still a public health idea. The English, the United Kingdom mechanism is a bit different in Grenada, although we are similar in some. As a matter of fact, the healthcare system that we have it here is probably very, because we took it from the United Kingdom. They gave us the system that we have is a colonialized system. It is the same as is happening in the United Kingdom. And caller, I'm going to tell you frankly, don't see something happen in the United Kingdom and say that it can happen in Grenada. Caller, don't do that. Don't try to do this. It just does not work. It's just like saying something works in America, so it can work here. These countries are different. The resources are different. The people are different. The risks are different. The behaviors are different. The economy is different. So the worst thing you can do to yourself is to say and see something in the United Kingdom and think that it can work in Grenada. Don't do this to yourself, because you're going to frustrate yourself. And there is no way in the world where a developing country is going to try to do something like that. It just doesn't happen in public health. But as I said, I was trained in England.
Yeah,
I did some training in England, so I understand the NHS, which is the National Health Service, and on a principled matter. As a matter of principle and policy structure, our healthcare system here in Grenada is similar to what happens in the United Kingdom. It's just that they call it different names, but it's something similar. As a matter of fact, England is also considering insurance as well, because they recognize that what they have in there, they have challenges with that system as well. So I believe at one point in time, they were looking at employing a kind of insurance services as how America is been doing, but I don't know where they are on it right now.
Yeah, they encourage you to have an separate insurance policy. But the National Health Service, which you as a PA is that it's for everybody, regardless of how reckless you are or how careful you are. It's for everybody, and everybody enjoy the benefits of it, but everybody paying to it. And like you're saying, I'm not saying we no way close to the sort of infrastructure of the United Kingdom, but I was just looking at it in the sense, because listening to the insurance guy, and he was saying something totally different in a way to what you always say when it comes to insurance, because like you have a life insurance policy, you only get that when you die. But I was just saying, if you have an insurance policy, let's say over a period of time, when you retire, you have something coming into you. But you have where you pay into the insurance, which is not insurance, into the health system. And as I will use the word as well, if I were living in the diaspora, and even though I were living in the United Kingdom, and I know the system here is like that, my brother, my sister, my aunt, uncle, my friend, everybody going to get seen to. I would love to send money into the system, but not in the NIS. It's totally different.
Okay, thank you, caller. Yes, thank you very much indeed. All right, 435-2041. That's the number you can call. Let's go back to a telephone. Doctor on call. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening. Excellent, doc.
Yes. Good evening, caller.
My question is, I want to ask that if help could be indoctrinated, because before we grew up, we used to eat the fruit, but now they're taking it. They send it away, they process it, and then we have to pay more for it, and that is what children are using now. Understand? Before we go anywhere, we pick government mango, and only when some pestilence coming up, you hear they talk about eat guava, eat this. But this is something we naturally we're supposed to be doing and continually doing. So I don't know, sometimes I say, by eating these things, they could be indoctrinated, because health must tell the people about those things. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. I'm not sure quite. Yeah.
The audio wasn't very, very good, so I didn't hear exactly what point he was making.
I'm not sure I understood him well, though. He made mentions of fruits and some of the things that was coming in. But let's go back to the telephone. Doctor on call, good evening. Hello. Doctor on call, good evening. Okay. All right. We're not getting through that caller. 435-2041. That's the number you can call. And remember, folks, when you call, kindly turn down the volume on your radio or television. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor on call, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you kindly turn down the volume of your radio or your television, caller, and listen to us on your telephone, please?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, thank you. Now, a while ago, one of the caller made reference to the system that exists in the United Kingdom. And he, by his reference in it, he meant that it works well. Well, let me tell him, he could come up to Granoy or people around there. And I could tell him that my cousin from down here went up to the kingdom where he pays and so on. And it took him months before he got attention. So much so that he's back down here and he's not going back up there. And it's something he has been invested in. So even in the United Kingdom with their advanced setup and so on, thing in place, it's not functioning as you want to make us believe. But I don't think he's any sinister in what he said. It's just that perhaps he didn't quite understand the situation. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. All right. So, folks, if you have any questions that you would like to put to Dr. Martin, you can do so. Let's go back to our telephone. Doctor on call. Good evening.
Yes, Doc. You see this gentleman? Sorry, I don't want to make pit-patat.
Caller. Please, let us not go down that road, please. If you have a question to ask the doctor, please do. I will not entertain you, commenting on the caller. Please, forget the caller. You have a question you want to ask the doctor, please do that, or else we'd have to move on.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
All right, okay. All right, the number is 435-2041. You can call and ask your question. Doctor on call, good evening.
Great, good evening, Citizen Augustine, and good evening to Dr. Martin.
Yes, indeed.
Can Dr. Martin hear me?
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Very well. Well, congratulations, Dr. Martin. I always tell you I don't flatter, but I like to hear you talk because you say it as it is, and I love that. But something you said a while ago that sort of pricked me. In reference to the National Health Service of the United Kingdom, you told us that the system that we have in place here was literally, hatched out of the UK system. And that's understood. We came through the old colonialist system. Well, my question is, Doctor, since 1979, henceforth, we have had relations with the Republic of Cuba, and they have tried to assist us in establishing through PHC, the Alma Ati, well, it was then Alma Ata, public health system, This is called primary health care system. That's the McCoy. Are you therefore telling me, Doctor, then that the Cuban intervention throughout the years did not make a very, very much of a dent in the original system established by the United Kingdom colonialist government? First question. The second one is as follows. national health insurance. Since this thing came about, it was launched about a lot of years, we say a lot years ago, by these publicists within the administration. But anyway, we've also heard, this is the part that bothers me, that they were vying to have foreign entities manage the system, some firm from Miami and other places. Doctor, do you think it is a wise thing, safe thing, in the interest of the population and their medical data, for a foreign firm to manage our national insurance system, health insurance system? Is there any danger in that as it relates to the health data of the population? Thank you very much and have a nice evening, will you?
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Martin, two questions at you.
Right. The first question regarding the impact the Cuban intervention had on the old colonial system. Let me tell you something. I wasn't there, but I've read and I've spoken to people who have had first-hand knowledge of the system in Grenada during the Cuban era. And I would say to you this, that the Cuban intervention into Grenada, as far as health is concerned, spoke directly to the Alma Ata Declaration. We were very fortunate that the Prime Minister of the country at this time bought into primary health care as a Prime Minister. And that is why he felt it was important to have primary health care, because he saw the benefit of it. The Cuban intervention and what the Cubans did for primary health care speaks to exactly what primary health care is. It turned it 180 degrees around. It had all the elements of primary health care. It had the core values of primary health care. It had the principles of primary health care in it, providing care for people where they are and where they should go. And so that was a very good opportunity for us to gauge our primary health care system close to what Cuba was. Let me also say to you that at that time, Dominica saw the benefit of what we were doing. Dominica came to Grenada and studied our primary health care system, went back to Dominica and rolled it out. And just before the Dominican hurricane, in the Eastern Caribbean and the OECS especially, Dominica was hailed as the best primary healthcare system in the OECS. And just so seeing they model it after us. So the answer to your question is, caller, yes, the primary healthcare system as given by Cuba was a very, very good one. It turned the healthcare system 180 degrees around. However, after the intervention, for some strange reason, the Grenadian people was made to think that the primary healthcare system was a communist type of system, and that the ideologies of it was not to our benefit. And so, from a psychological standpoint, they made citizens of our own country turn against our own healthcare system, because somehow they made it look as though it was a bad entity or some kind of a communist entity. Because in that time, to make doctor and nurse and pharmacists available for access to people, the primary healthcare system had a living allowance for the doctor, a living quarters for the pharmacist, a living quarters for the nurse. They were close to the health facilities so that every citizen had access to healthcare whenever they were sick. After the intervention, they made it say, no, that is not good. They made us turn against our own selves. We send doctors to rent their own room. We send nurses back home. And so we turned everything back around. And it was a sad day for us. And that's my personal opinion about our primary healthcare system and where we need to get back to in some form or the other. Regarding the national health insurance and what has to happen, I'll be very practical and honest with you. We have recognized that we need to turn ourselves to a digital age. Not just digital age, but in terms of how we deal with our epidemiology, we ought to be able to do so. If for us to have a national health insurance in the kind of way that we think ought to happen, I'll be very honest with you, we need help. If you tell me there is a group of Grenadians with the amount of accolades and experience in health insurance for national health insurance, I'll be more than happy to embrace them because I am a Grenadian and I believe in eating local and buy local, and anything local, I'm with it. Just imagine something as simple as trying to help our doctors to change from writing notes to putting notes in a computer. It was a Herculean task, if you want to put it that way, to get doctors to understand how to do this. So the truth is, we actually do need some help. Where we get the help from, that's where the real matter is. We really need to do due diligence to make sure that whatever system we take into consideration will be for the best benefit of our country. There is no real true answer to that question. I think we just have to look at it by ear. And of course, there is inherent risk when you expose your data to other places. But in the day and age that we're living now, where data, once it's in electronic form, is available and available to a lot of people, I believe it is a conversation that must be had. But overall, I honestly think that we need some expert help if we are to implement the national health insurance as we do.
Okay, thank you very much. 435-2041, that's the number to call, and of course you will have the opportunity to ask your question or make your contribution to the program. The number again, 435-2041. Yes. Doc, in the meantime, a quick question. What would you say to people as it relates to the, and I'm going back to the trade issue, because I think this is something that is very, very important. I don't think as a people we are paying close enough attention to the dangers that are embedded there. So I'm asking, what would you say to people as it relates to the impact of the trade practices on their health? So you're speaking to a community. Look, we know that there are issues. What would you say to them so that they can do what is best for their health?
I would say to people that the commodities that you buy and eat on a daily basis, these commodities are designed to make you sick. They are designed to make you sick, and some of them not intentionally. But once they are processed, the people in the village must understand that. They must understand that these foods, they are also designed to be cheap. And when they're designed to be cheap, that's an inherent danger. Because, they're cheap, you're able to buy a lot of it, but at the end of the day, the sickness that you're going to get, the cost is going to be really, really exorbitant for you. In poor villages and poor communities, businesses thrive. Some businesses thrive in those areas because it is cheap and it's easy and as easy money to make. I drive around sometimes and I say, fried chicken wings and fries is probably the hottest commodity in every little nook and cranny. We love fried chicken in Grenada. Listen, man. The chicken wing thing. Doc. As an aside, I don't understand where we come up with the oil dung bin or national dish as compared to chicken and chips. Because we love it. You see, I am almost certain of that every day in Grenada, somebody is either making or selling chicken and chips. Not every day you would find everybody or people cooking all along. That is absolutely correct. Chicken and chips is sold every single day. Mm-hmm. And the Irish potato, for example, the Irish potato that we have, these are simple sugars. Mm-hmm. And these simple sugars, when you eat them, it really increases your blood sugar, very, very high. And of course, it tastes good as well. Mm-hmm. And all of that is addictive. And so, because they're cheap, they're addictive, they're filling, then people tend to eat that. So, people need to understand that the trade practices as well is also designed so that they do not eat the local foods. makes everything easy and make it difficult for them to, when you have a $5 in your hand, you have to figure out where you want to spend that $5. And for some people, it's easier to spend it on white flour than have a breadfruit or have yams or something like that. So, these are the kind of thing that needs to happen. But seriously, Godfrey, at the end of the day, it's priority. That's what I think it is. It's priority at the end of the day. People chooses to spend the money on the things that they think is important to them. So all of the old talking hearing about that expensive and so on, at the end of the day, it is priority. Because when we want something bad enough, we find a way to get it.
Indeed.
Everybody understands.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Doc. I mean, you are so correct. So correct. 435-2041. That's the number you can call, and you can have your little say. You can get to ask your question. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor on call. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Dr. Martin. Doc, I want to mention, you see the school for preventing disease, I find we should start from there. A few years ago, the government came up with a plan to ban all sweet drinks, and they was promoting local fruits and things, and that was so good, but it just fall by the way. I don't know the reason why. I remember I had a primary school, preschool in St. George's. Before your child enroll, they tell you what the child supposed to come in the school, and the children was. They bring themselves to accept what you give them. No cancol, no sweet drinks, a little cane, a little mango. But since the children leave that school and they end up in the primary school, all hell loose now. Bad eating. They come in, you go to school from 3, 4, 5. And you're eating healthy. When you go in the primary school now, they start giving you the cancol, they start giving you the snow ice. The children now, like, they come and all natural fruits and everything for them is out of the system. So I find the school have a part to play. You put in your rules. And then the children will grow and perhaps learn to accept our local.
Okay, thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Doc, we've heard, things like that being said a lot. Or, most times you hear, we need to start in the schools, for almost everything. We need to start in the schools. But when are we going to start?
Well, you see, this is the issue I have here. The people who are saying we need to start in the schools, where were the children born? Where do they live? We like to speak in a way that removes responsibility from ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Let me tell you something. The taste that children adapt to, that taste started in the womb. The pregnant mother was determining what taste the child is going to love when the child is born. The family determine what taste the child likes after the child is born. When you start introducing the family pot to the infant, to the toddler, you are determining the taste of the child. When you start feeding the child with sweets and salt and concols and things long before they start going to school, how you mean to tell me we need to start in the schools?
When you started long before.
Start in the school. You started long before. The people who selling the concours and soft drink in school is big adults that are selling it. These adults that are selling the thing, they have children too. I could see the school continuing what the home has started. But you cannot start in any school. It has to start in the homes. The parents are the one that buy soft drink and give to their children. The parents are the one that reward children by giving them a special type of chicken. The parents are the one that reward the children by giving them salt. So when they go to school, it's just a continuation of that. So please, don't blame the school. We like to say school because when we use the word school coming out of our mouth, that word exonerates ourselves as though we're perfect. We need to start in the school. So please, let's start at home.
Yes, indeed. Let's go back to our telephone. Dr. on call, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, caller.
Earlier on, a caller made mention of paying into a national health system. I am wondering if that payment continues until retirement, and after the person has retired, they would get some benefits from the money that they would have put into the NHS. I don't know what the doctor think of something like this, but that thought came to me, and I thought I could just throw it out. Yes, Doc, let me hear you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you.
For the purposes of health, something like that I will not encourage, because health don't stop at retirement. It has to be the cradle to the grave kind of a system. That would not work. That mechanism sounds like it's something different, like a term insurance or something like that. That's different to the concept that caller was speaking about.
Indeed. Let's get back to the telephone. The doctor on call, good evening.
Good evening, Godfrey.
Good evening.
Good evening to the doctor. Now, I am thinking that status could be the cause, the real cause of the lifestyle and the epidemic in the lifestyle that we live. The status I'm talking about, that people consider, okay, for instance, you go to the supermarket and you see a big trolley load up with things in boxes and wraps and bottles. Rather than going in the local market and load up a trolley with ground provision and callaloo and all of that, and you go by the fish market and you buy some cornfish or some fresh fish, that status is too local, so it's considered to be poor. But the one in the supermarket with the big trolley with all kind of packages and wrapping, that is high status. Could it be that is that kind of status that is the culprit for the lifestyle and the epidemic that we have not only in Grenada, but I'm talking about Grenada now, because we are in Grenada, we're talking about Grenada. With all those obesity we see walking around. Suck your belly full of mango, eat ripe fish and all kind of thing. Rather than going and pack your trolley with all kind of thing in bottle. That kind of a status. You know, like some people, they don't even know it. But once they have a vehicle, they find they want to say, oh, well, I'm up there. Or you see some people have long rope on their head. And they say, well, here I am, even though it's false rope. But look, I have long hair. That kind of status. Could that be the problem? I'm wondering. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thinking outside the box, Doc.
Well, I'm not a social scientist, so I think I understand what she's saying.
Yes.
But I'm not an expert. I'm not a sociologist, so I can't really say that. But I do understand, as a Grenadian kind of, people like to feel affluent. I mean, we have really grown people like to say things are not better in Grenada. And for those who say things are not better in Grenada, I've always had a problem with this thing. Listen to me, man. I grew up so poor. People know. Look at me today. You want to tell me that things haven't gotten better in Grenada? There was a time when you had to wait an hour to get a bus from Sotes to town. Now you're getting a bus just like that.
Yeah.
You're telling me things are not better? Come on, man. So things have improved over time. It may not improve the way you want it to do. But generally, with the improvement of society, with the improvement in the economy of countries, with people earning more and getting more, that kind of increase or that kind of elevation in your socio-economic status also is associated with certain type of health-seeking behavior. However, I want to plug something in here. We have found in public health that the people on the highest or higher socio-economic status are generally healthier
than
those on the lower economic status. So I'm not quite sure that status argument is going to work, because a lot of those people with the long ropes in their head as she spoke about, they may not necessarily be people on the higher socioeconomic status. It might be people who are finding all clandestine ways to put that weave on their head. They themselves may not have the money to do so. So that argument is there. We need to talk about it, but I don't know if I can link status directly with ill health.
Well, no, definitely not. I mean, for example, you look at let's say a country like Sweden, for example. When you look at the lifespan, clearly it is because of how people live. And when you talk about annual income, I mean, these people, their annual income is way higher than other countries, in the developed countries. And so these people, they have a longer lifespan. They live longer. So status, I don't know how, that may work. But let's go back to the telephone. Doctor on call, good evening.
Greetings, Brother Godfrey. How are you?
Good.
And the listeners, and should I say my boy or should I say our boy, Dr. Martin? And I call and I'm happy I get you because I want to make a few points, particularly because of our boy is there and he had said something which I just want to give a little more clarity on. But first of all, let me say that I agree with you, Brother Godfrey, and I think the doc put perspective to it within his medical studies, the whole idea of poverty, education, and ill health. And I want to add to this 3 factors, a 4th one coming from the last caller. Although you take it in a particular way, you interpret it, but I want to take the liberty to say I think the point you're really trying to make with status, like some of us who are poor, and we're trying to be in thing, so we can't afford it. But we leave the countryside and go in St. George's. And we want to let people see that, we are bantying with those who could afford it, those in the upper echelons, those are the real status quo. We want to fall in line. So as such, we go and we pack our baskets with junk. Whereas we in the country, we could have used our callaloo leaf and we could have planted a block of tree. And yes, our boy, Dr. Frankie, you tell him you grew up poor, let him know what keep you going, what had keep you going, keeping you going. Is there a lot of tomato juice and food that you ate from your daddy, from Granny right here. Tell him that, the local foods. But I want to say here that, yes, there is some political dimension involved going from the revolution, which was linked with some policies coming from Cuba, and getting back into what they call democracy restored. And you use the example, and that's why I say, let me just interject here. I think there are other factors, but the example you used, I want to give a little more insight to. The example you used really like the primary health care, for example. You still have the offering coming from Cuba was that in every area, more or less parish, you have a house doctor, somebody who is in a particular place, and then afterward that went out. But I want to let you know that, no, in the late, maybe even before my time, but growing up as a boy, well, you came after, in the early 70s when I get myself, knowing things. Yes, in every parish, in particular Goa, for instance, there was a doctor station, there's a doctor house there, and a nurse house there. So it was there already. So even coming from the colonial time, this type of arrangement was there. It just happened that whether it's from England or from Cuba, our political will, as you said, biting the bullet, and I will still give some credit to the United Nations, it's a political challenge for health in our region, in particular Grenada. And right now, we have been seeing, for example, and recently there have been calls and concerns about you know much about the information behind the scenes, shifting the nursing school to SGU. People talking about that. Over the years, we have been seeing that this type of we have in every community or in every parish. This nurse there 24 hours around the clock. The doctor can call on him. It's not there anymore. Even in general hospital, before I came as a boy, they still have the nurses hostel. So the nurses right there, they just went out the door. And even right now, I am facing a situation right now with one of my in-laws. They cannot get attended directly by a doctor. So before, when a parish doctor comes and says your area has grown or whatever, those persons who cannot go out to the medical station, these have the doctors giving an hour or two to go and see these people home. This is kind of going out the door. So our genuine effort and concern for the elderly and the sick and those who are not very mobile to go out. Yes, last week or week before I heard you made a point. Having access, having the station, for example, in Go-Up, it's one thing. That one dimension. And I think you repeated in a different way tonight. But somebody in Granway Concord having no transportation or a facility and help to get it, the whole effort is futile. So it's a holistic approach which must be taken. And yes, to bite the bullet, but it is a challenge. It is a challenge. And what you are doing, as my colleague, our boy, and as my colleague John Rolo have been saying, you are there. Everyone is hearing you. You are there. And what you are giving here publicly is policy direction for taking our country forward. In the health scenario, and political enthusiasts in free information. And the people is getting free information. But how many persons, especially the young people, are tuned to that? That's another dimension which we have taken very, very carefully. Bob Marley said, liberate yourself from mental slavery, and no one could do it than us. But our general population, the youthful population, they are not inclined to that at all. Social media and other entertainment factors, junk and wave, jab, carnival, entertainment. This thing was everything.
So caller, try to wrap it up now,
yes,
because we want to
I know, I'm trying.
All right.
So I just want to make the point that congratulations on what you are saying. I'm happy that you promote the idea that you grew up in a kind of post-it, but you ate a lot of local stuff, and you made it, and we are proud of you. And whole Grenada are proud of you. And what you are saying is facts, but I just felt it was pressure on my part to call you to tell you that while there are other factors involved, I just want to remind you, if maybe you did not get information, that even before the revolution, we had a sample, at least for this primary health care, in terms of having district nurses, district doctors residing in a particular house. And then it was easy access, inverted commas, for people. So if you can help, although you are now your private practice, but I think the government see you as a resource person to get back the parish or the district doctors to visit poor people on the bed who cannot go to the medical station. And
all right, thank you, Paula. Thank you
very much. All the best. Godfrey best.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we almost out of time. Let's take one final call. Dr. on call, good evening.
Yeah, Godfrey, me again.
Mm-hmm.
Godfrey, the things that you and the doctor are advocating every Tuesday is getting out of the status that is killing them. The status I'm talking about, where they don't like local things because that is poor. That considered to be poor. Godfrey, how much people does boil a pot of cocoa and make a bakes, even though they do it fire on top, fire below? Sit down and boil a pot of green fig and blugger with saltfish. How much local people doing that now, Godfrey? So the status I'm talking about is what you do every Tuesday, getting the people out of that status, which supposed to be making them high and rich with the packages and them in the food in the supermarket. Because this is what you advocate every Tuesday on that program. This is what you and the doctor is talking about now. Is a status problem we have here, Godfrey. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. And that was our last call for this evening. We thank you all very much for your contribution. Dr. Martin, we've touched basically two major issues this evening. The issue of the impact of trade on healthcare, and also we looked a little bit at as a developing nation, the better diagnosis and treatment of conditions to help decrease mortality rate. I thank you so very much for being here, and of course I know you have given your commitment, of course, once you're available to be on the program to share information, and we really thank you for that. So I invite you now to make some closing remarks before we close off for this evening.
Yes, thank you, Godfrey, and thanks, my dear friend, for calling to shed a bit more light on the information. And of course, the issue of doctors visiting people at home and those who don't have transportation, the whole idea of revitalizing the primary healthcare. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to it, and you alluded to that. We can't never go into all of that, but the issue of transportation and access was also discussed, and is part of that whole primary healthcare package. So it is looked at, and once we as a country make a decision to go through it, the information is out there for persons to be used. But as I close, it has always been something that I hold very dear to me, that I believe, while I believe in personal responsibilities, I also believe that people must be given an opportunity to express, an opportunity to live healthy. You cannot just tell people live healthy without giving them an opportunity to do so. I was quite lucky, I think. I was quite lucky because of my upbringing. I had nothing, and because of that, I had to eat the tomatoes and the beans and the cucumbers and so on, just like that. And I consider that being lucky, because it has shaped me to be what I am here today. And I think people need to start looking at things through this. My final words are, as I've always said before, colleagues and citizens, while the idea of preventative healthcare and primary healthcare sounds good to the ears, and because it sounds good to the ears, a lot of people are going to use those words and say it. Healthcare providers, policymakers, they're going to speak that language of primary healthcare because it's a good language to speak. Since Alma Ata Declaration, every country has been speaking the language. But the truth is, the undertone, there's a kind of an invisible force that sort of goes against countries' ability to implement primary healthcare. So don't think that because you're saying it and you want to do it, the means will be there to make it done, to have it done. You're always going to be fought on all levels, on all systems. Even our regional institutions, they're going to still speak the language of primary healthcare. But our regional institutions is not going to make it an agenda if it is not a political issue and a political priority for countries. PAHO and those other places have been very clear about this. For them to make something a priority for you, it must be a priority, a political priority in your country. So we have to think of all of that as a nation. Let's bring it up into a national conversation so that our leaders and our policymakers are now given the tool and the authority to go forward and say, my country want this, we want technical help to do so. So it's a holistic thing that must happen, but the conversation must start right now. I wish everybody good health and strength, and I wish I, as a physician, never have to see none of you.
Doc, I wonder if I can believe you in that. I like that. But it's important, and I also want to echo something you said, at part 2 of the forum. Folks, we need to move and take care, pay attention before it is too late. Because when it's too late, nothing can be done. When you move in time, what's our senior citizens have a saying, a stitch in time saves 9. Yes, indeed. So, folks,
avoid the too late syndrome.
Avoid the too late syndrome. So, we thank you very much for your calls, your contributions. We thank you for staying with us. And, of course, next Tuesday, Dr. Panchu will be with us to continue the discussion and go into some details on mental health. And so, we look forward to having you. Dr. Martin, thank you so very much again. And, of course, we'll be chatting soon and definitely to have you back on the program. So all the best and do have a good night.
Thank you, Godfrey. Good night.
Thank you. That's our program this evening, folks. We thank you again and we look forward to being with you next Tuesday. Tomorrow evening, Wednesday, you can join us for our Wednesday evening edition of Release It. Until then, have a good night. All the best.